So I have a 10-year plan at the moment, and it sort of ends at the Brisbane Olympics in 2032. I'd love to be a part of that. In the lead up to that, to work at Football Australia till, hopefully 2026, the Men's World Cup over in the US and Canada and Mexico, and then go to Europe for 2 or 3 years, work there, and then come back and get a job at the Brisbane Olympics. So I think it was definitely worthwhile because it's made my decision making so much easier. A job will pop up. I'm like, oh, that's a sick job. I'm like, well, it doesn't fit into my career goal, so I'm not even going to bother looking at it. Sometimes you have to be flexible and you have to change your career path and make different decisions. But if you have that base of, this is my goal, I want to work at the Brisbane Olympics, and how do I get there?
G'day guys, coming up on the show today is Sam Hickson. Sam is the event manager at Football Australia. Sam is one of the great friends of the show, having previously joined us for a World Cup special in episode 185, which you may remember. There's heaps to look out for in today's ep, including what it's like to work at Football Australia, how he created a bit of a career plan for himself despite being still quite early in his career, and what some of the key skills are that you need to work in events at one of the biggest national sporting organisations in Australia. Let's go.
I started volunteering.
It's all about who you know in sport.
Am I going to be calling the last 10 seconds of the grand final?
You can connect with the interviewer. The hand goes up when they've got to make a decision.
Having a network is one of the most important things you can do.
I didn't necessarily follow my passion. I followed my curiosity.
Once you've worked in sport, there's no going back.
And then lo and behold, before I left, I got offered 2.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Grad Podcast, the ultimate guide to make it in the sports industry. I'm Ryan Walker, and each week we learn how people made it in sports and tease out some of their career decisions, their work habits, skills, and everything they do that makes them great. Also, you can learn how to get in, get promoted, and get thriving in the sports industry. Follow us on LinkedIn if you don't already. If you want to connect with us and hundreds of others working in the sports industry, you can become a member of the Sports Grad community. A little bit of a shout out to some of those members inside our community at the moment. A couple of wins I'd love to share with you. Number one is Maddie Reith, one of our favourite members, is out there being production coordinator at Kojo. A lot of you would have heard of Kojo. It's one of the best organisations and creative agencies here in Australia, working with some great organisations. So congrats, Maddie. And the second one I'd love to call out is Parth Suri, our man from Adelaide. He's recently got a new job as the Community Engagement Manager at the Adelaide Crows. Talk about an incredible job coming from a banking background as well. So it just proves again, if you don't work in sport, there's always ways to get into sport. So well done, Parth. And he's also our Member of the Month for June. Little bit of a fun initiative we have inside Sportsgrad where we reward some of the great work that our members are doing each and every month. So great job, Parth, and great to catch up with you back at the Adelaide meetup. If you'd like to enjoy a little bit of a quick email from us every Friday on all the latest job openings, networking events, Q&As, latest podcast episodes as well, then subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that by heading to our website at sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter. You can subscribe, and there's also a link in our show notes as well. But without further ado, let's get on to the episode with Sam Hickson. Grab a pen. This is an awesome chat with Sam. Everybody wants to study at one of the top unis in the world for sport. And at Deakin, you can do just that. So don't miss your chance to see what sets them apart at their campus open days this August. Check out the state-of-the-art facilities, hear from their world-class academics, meet with current students and experience the campus vibe that they're famous for. Join thousands of the brightest students who have already registered to attend this unmissable event. Search Deakin Open Day and take your first step towards achieving your ultimate career. The Geelong Open Day is on the 20th of August, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And of course, Burwood Open Day is the 27th of August at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So check it out now and start your career in sport. Sam, welcome back to the Sports Grad Podcast, mate.
Hello, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It's good to be back.
Good to have you in Melbourne for a change. You're usually up in Sydney, and I don't think I've seen you in person since Qatar as well.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you guys weren't at the Socceroos game in March.
I was.
Well, you were, but I didn't see you there.
I didn't see you there.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
saw some photos of you on the ground there, but you were too busy. You didn't have time to catch up with someone like me. So good to finally get you down.
It is good to be in God's country in Melbourne.
God's country, love that.
How has Football Australia been since the whole World Cup thing?
It's been really good. It's been very busy. There's a lot happening at the moment. There's a lot of planning for obviously the Women's World Cup and then some upcoming matches as well. We've had the Cup of Nations in February too. We had the Socceroos game in March. We actually had some really cool matches involving the Peru's in early Feb as well, which was fun to do. So it's been very crazy and busy, but it's been really good.
Now, I remember last time you were on the podcast, you said that if Australia make it to the World Cup if they make it to the round of 16 of the World Cup, which they did, then the prize money from FIFA might go towards some business flights back to Australia. Did that ever end up happening?
Unfortunately, no. No, but I got extra legroom seats, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Well, when I was in Qatar, I caught up with Chris Nicku, chairman of Football Australia, and I spoke about you, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I know Sam. He's my ticket guy." And I was like, "Great, me and the chairman have got the same ticket guy for the World Cup."
Yeah.
And I told him about what you said on the last podcast, and I was like, the staff are eyeing off some business flights home, and he goes, "Oh, I might have to have a word about that."
Yeah.
So his word clearly got through. If you're flying home in economy,
it's not great to know that I'm known as the ticketing guy, but that's okay. I'll take that.
That's it.
I'll take it. It's great. It's good on you. Mate, you're an avid listener, so you know how this goes. We start the episode with a few quick-fire questions. Heavily instructed to make them quick, as we notified earlier. But I'll start. What was your first ever job?
It was a paper run around my local neighbourhood.
Nice.
And what did you study at university?
I did a Bachelor of Business, majoring in Sport Management and Management. And then I'm currently doing a Masters of Event Management.
Nice.
Yeah.
Favourite sporting moment?
Can I have two? The qualifying for the Men's World Cup, the penalty save by Redders, and then also making it to the round of 16 in the World Cup at my first World Cup. I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
To be there for both is just outrageous.
So cool.
Absolutely outrageous. What is your favourite interview question that you like to answer?
Probably would be someone asking me what an example of how I've problem solved at an event under pressure. I like to think that I work well under pressure, so I think that's a nice, easy one for me to answer.
When you work in events, I'm sure that happens almost on a daily basis.
You're in the
100%.
pressure cooker. Nice.
I rember chatting to you in Qatar and with all the ticketing systems that FIFA had given you and trying to distribute them to family and friends. It didn't sound easy.
It was not, and especially coupled with the ticketing system going down before the first match as well. I think that added to it, but everyone eventually got their tickets, and that's the main thing.
Everyone made it in.
Yeah.
Nice. What's a book or podcast that's helped you at work?
Well, like I said before, I don't really listen to podcasts other than Sports Grad, so I think I'd have to say Sports Grad definitely has helped because, I don't really like podcasts, but I really enjoy listening to Sports Grad and learning a lot from it. So, yeah.
Thank you. We'll pay you later.
Yeah.
Well, out of interest, what was the first episode that you listened to that made you a podcast listener?
The first episode I listened to was on the way to my first Sports Grad meetup. And it was one of the ones of like, what do I do at a meetup? Or like, how do I not be awkward at a Sports Grad meetup? I think that was the first one. And then I've sort of gone back and watched others since then.
I reckon that's one of my favourite pods of all time, the How Not to Be Awkward.
Yeah.
I reckon that was great.
They're good.
That was raw.
Yeah, I've actually, that advice of like having something in your hand at all times, I've like taken into like just normal life as well. I'll go to like a friend's party or something and I'll just make sure like I have something in my hand so I'm not standing there awkwardly. So it's been good.
It's a little trick for young players, isn't it? That's stood the test of time.
I remember when we were writing up that episode and I was like, is this weird to say, like, hold something in your hand? But that night, or maybe it was the Melbourne one, I had a few people come up to me like, I'm holding something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forget people listen to my advice.
Got something in my hand. Are you associated with any grassroots sporting clubs?
I am. I currently play for ACUFC out in Football Canterbury. And then previous to that, I was heavily involved with North Epping Rangers in it was Gladesville Hornsby, but now it's Northwest Sydney Football.
Nice.
Amazing. And finally, if you had 30 minutes to pick the brain of absolutely anybody, who would it be?
That's a great question. To be honest, I'd probably say, off the top of my head, Holly Mellier, who's the event manager at the Football Association over in the UK. I think the experience that she has and the matches she gets to run would be pretty sick. So I'd love to have a chat with her, yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's a great one.
Can we get her on the podcast?
Yeah.
Well, you could try. If you do, I'd love to be a part of that pod as well. Thanks.
Dial in for a question if you like.
100%.
We've got a bonus question here.
Okay.
It comes from Cooper Irwin, one of our great members at Sportsgrad.
Nice.
He's sent through a question, and it is...
The smile on your face is scaring me.
It is, how'd Western Sydney go in the A-League finals?
Can we end the podcast
now? You're a very avid fan, aren't you?
I am, yes.
You bleed the red and black.
Absolutely, yes. I have a RBB membership, and I try to make most of the matches that I can for Wanderers. I was there at the semi-final.
When it ended?
Yep. And I left pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't
very
happy.
good.
Nice.
Thanks, Coops, for the question as well.
Yeah, we've just got the Discord here open for anyone to send some questions through, which is a new thing we're trying, which is cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Me too.
I'll send you a video of me walking away after the final whistle, Cooper, and you can watch me rage.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Western United, you spent some time working at Western United before you landed your job at Football Australia, where you're now the event manager. But walk us through the sequence of events that you went through from, say, university to the role you're in now, so people can hear about your journey.
Before we begin, Western United, it is actually Western Sydney Wanderers.
Sorry, Western Sydney. Sorry. My bad. I've got too many Wests in my head.
Yeah, we made finals, and I don't think Western United did.
No.
So,
Western Sydney, my bad.
That's right. So when I was at uni, I was at working at Bicycle New South Wales as the event assistant there, just casually 2 days a week, helping run the Spring Cycle and Gear Up Girl, which was two just community bike rides. Spring Cycle went across the Harbour Bridge, which was pretty cool. And then one thing led to another, and a lot of people say it's who you know, not what you know in sport, and this is a great example of that. My dad worked next to someone who had a connection with the Western Sydney Wanderers, and then through them talking, sort of I came up, and my love for sport and the Wanderers came up as well. And through that, I got to have a meeting with Mark Jensen, who was the head of marketing communications at the Wanderers. Grabbed a coffee with him, had a chat with him, and then he introduced me to Natalie Gatt, who at the time was kind of like the event manager at the Wanderers that ran their matches. And then they offered me an internship to do like the precinct operations there. And then through that, it kind of just led from one thing led to another. I was precinct intern, and then I sort of helped out the community 1 day a week as a paid role, just with their schools cup. And then sort of just started adding days on. So I went to 2 days, 3 days. And then after COVID, that was my first full-time job at the Wanderers. And then moving on from Wanderers was now my current organisation, which is Football Australia. I was event coordinator there. And then obviously back in November, got promoted to event manager, which was pretty exciting.
Amazing. And how did you make that jump from Wanderers to FA? Were you looking for something? Did it just come up? Did someone tell you about it? How did that work?
Yeah, well, I wasn't actually looking at the time. I was really enjoying my time at Wanderers. And then I was out at a school clinic. I remember, I think it was West Ryde Public School. And I got a message from someone that worked at Football Australia, just recommending me for this role, saying, hey, I reckon this would be a great fit for you. I'd worked with this person at the African Cup through the Wanderers as well. So she obviously knew how I worked and what I did, and applied for the job. She obviously I think spoke to the hiring manager and gave me a good rap, which is good. And then had an interview, and then a month or so later started at Football Australia.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Tell us about being an event manager. What does it consist of? Walk us through a typical day of what that looks like at Football Australia.
I've been asked this so many times, a typical day as an event manager, and it's such a...
What do you actually do? What do you do?
I just run matches. I guess, currently at the moment, we're planning for the Matildas send-off match on the 14th of July out at Marvel Stadium. If you haven't got your tickets, get your tickets now.
And if you haven't got your tickets, you know where to go.
Exactly. Not to me, to Ticketek. Thank you.
Chris Nicku's personal ticket.
So currently in the planning stages of that. So looking at room allocations based off the CADs of the stadium. Obviously, you've got your parking and accreditation that you're working through. You have all like the VIP functions and the corporate hospitality that you're sort of working with our corporate hospitality team to make sure that the rooms that we need from an event and operations point of view are free and available. And then obviously you're working with the stadium as well to make sure that from an operational point of view, you're sort of aligned. It is arguably one of the most important matches in the Matildas calendar. It's only a week or so before their first match in the Women's World Cup. So you want to make sure everything's perfect for them. It's a ideal environment for high performance, because the last thing you want is someone to get injured or something to go wrong, and then it affects their performance at the Women's World Cup. So just making sure the venue and high performance and ourselves are sort of aligned, and making sure that from a high performance view, we've got everything down pat. And then, even today, heading down to Marvel Stadium to check out the precinct, to make sure that we have enough space, measuring things to ensure that, marquees will fit or inflatables, and then just seeing if we can find additional rooms, or if the rooms we have don't work, how do we make them work? So, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. It's a lot of work, but it's fun and exciting work as well.
It's also like a lot of stuff that isn't related to the actual game. Like all the behind the scenes stuff, like the rooms, the VIPs, the hospitality, all these kind of things that allow it to all happen. I think some people won't realise what is really behind the scenes in that. Like there's just so much.
Exactly. And I feel like I say what we do, and then there's so much that I don't actually think about that I do, but I still do.
Yeah.
And like us as a team, we put together an amazing world-class match, but there's so many things, like millions of things that goes on behind the scenes, down to the smallest thing, like, have we packed that marquee in the freight, and then that might, if we haven't packed that marquee, then, I'm worrying about that on match day instead of worrying about, something else, and then it sort of snowballs. So just making sure that everything's, perfect and make sure it's all, ready to go. That's, the main thing.
And how do you manage that? Do you have massive spreadsheets, checklists? What's behind everything that comes together?
Yeah, there's a lot of Excel documents. Catering is an Excel doc, parking is an Excel doc, accreditation is an Excel doc. Our equipment and freight is an Excel doc as well, and just making sure that we're checking those off and ensuring that what we have and what we're planning for is correct, and we can go off previous matches and making cross-checking to make sure we've covered it all for this match. But this one on the 14th of July is going to be big, so it's going to be exciting.
Amazing. Have you just become like an Excel wizard in the process of doing your job?
I actually did a course when I was at Bicycle New South Wales, an intermediate Excel course, and I think it went in one ear and out the other because I still am not great at Excel.
Oh, you haven't got your VLOOKUPs down pat or anything like that?
No, definitely not. I had to ask someone a couple of days ago how to hide a column and how to lock a column, because I wanted to lock that first column.
Oh, the freeze frame.
Yeah, the freeze frame. Yeah, I didn't know how to do that.
You feel like a massive pro when you freeze one. You're just like, oh yeah.
Absolutely, and it scrolls and that's locked. Oh, yeah. Feels good.
I did a sun if the other day. That made me feel good.
Yeah. That's when you get into the scary mode.
Yeah.
Formulas. Yeah. What, before you move on, why is that game at Marvel? Do you know? I
actually
wouldn't
don't.
It be at Amy?
Amy is a Women's World Cup venue, so
they don't want to play on it.
Well, FIFA has an exclusion period, and
gotcha.
Which obviously people can't play on it because they want to make sure the pitch is up to that World Cup standard.
Makes sense.
And obviously Marvel fits a lot more people, so we're trying to get as many people as we can into that match, especially because a lot of the Matildas matches are sold out now in the Women's World Cup. So those that didn't get the tickets to Women's World Cup can come to that send-off game.
Yeah, cool. Makes sense.
Let's. I just want to backtrack a bit quickly to the Men's World Cup in Qatar.
Yeah.
So you've given us a nice description of what a day in the life looks like here when you're in Australia working on tournaments at home. Can you give us a brief description of what it was like when you're on the ground at the Qatar World Cup? What was that like?
It was pretty manic. We weren't getting a lot of sleep, but it was very exciting. I think on a match day, you'd wake up, you'd get breakfast and a coffee because that's very important, and then you'd sort of lock in that ticketing allocation, making sure that players, family and friends had their tickets and were seated correctly, and making sure that no one was left out or no one hadn't received their tickets.
So your role had changed during this period of time compared to what you do in Australia, is that right?
Correct. So at the Men's World Cup, I was in charge of ticketing and then helping out with the family and friends tour as well. So it was good because it was different. So it was different learning for me. I mean, the ticketing part was a challenge, especially with obviously all the stuff going down with the systems. It was tough. We were trying to figure out whether we would stay electronic, whether we'd print out the tickets, how we would distribute the tickets. And then once we got on the bus, we would then go to the family and friends function. That was the pre-match function. Make sure I'd go around, just make sure everyone had their tickets, everyone was comfortable getting into the venue. And then once we got to the venue, I would kind of just stand outside and just make sure that no one had any issues scanning their tickets, scanning their Haya card. If they were lined up in the wrong line, I would try and drag them out and bring them back. And just make sure that everyone was in, because we all had to be in and seated before the warm-up started. And that was our biggest priority. And very thankfully, we did for every single game, so that was good.
And what about non-match days? Because there's 5 days in between some games. What would you do during those periods?
It would just be planning for the next one. So doing the seating plans, making sure that we would have a map of all the seats that we had, and then I'd put names to each seat to make sure that we had enough and that all the players and family and friends were accounted for. I might, you might go to the FIFA headquarters and get your VAPs, which are like the parking passes. You might go to the FIFA ticketing centre and have a chat to our ticketing contact if we had any questions. And then on the side as well, helping with the family and friends, just making sure they were looked after. If they would go anywhere or doing any tours, we might go along and just make sure that if they had any questions or concerns, that we were available.
Did you do the desert safari with them?
That nighttime one, yeah. It was we went to this farm, but then one of the buses broke down, so we got there super late. Oh, no. And it was already dark, they'd already started, they'd already serving food. But it was actually a really cool experience. They had some of their music playing, and then they had some dances and stuff, so it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so you're doing vastly different stuff at the World Cup compared to back here in Australia. Does that sort of stuff happen often? Are people regularly pulled into different roles for different tournaments or different periods just because stuff needs to be done? How does that work inside somewhere like Football Australia? Yeah,
I guess it kind of depends on the tournament. For the Men's World Cup, there were a couple people that were pulled into differing roles. For example, family and friends, there was our fundraising manager was there, our marketing, our general manager of marketing, and then myself was there as well. So it's kind of just grabbing people from each department if they're available and free to help, and have that sort of skill set needed for that role.
So Carlo Kasparian was in there?
Not Carlo Kasparian. He's the digital marketing. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Our man, great friend of the show.
Yeah.
Big man Carlo.
Yeah.
Shout out Carlo.
If you're tuning in, 100%.
100%. So I guess it kind of just depends on what the role requires, the skills needed for that role, and then obviously the availability. Some people may not be available because they may be doing other things. For example, Carlo would have been working on the media and making sure that all the socials and everything for the Socceroos were doing the best they could. And so obviously he wouldn't be available to help out in other areas. So I guess it kind of depends on the skill set and whether that person's free or not.
So it's just tournaments on, all hands on deck.
Pretty much.
Do whatever you can.
What do we need? Let's do it.
Yeah. Traditional roles just gone out the window.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's cool.
Nice.
It is pretty cool, especially because you get that kind of different experience and different roles that you can try out and see if you enjoy.
Awesome. Now, Sam, a couple of months ago, I think it was now, I called you up just to chat about how things are going. And one thing that you told me about was your goal-setting process and the vision that you've got for your career. And I was really impressed by it because I don't come across many people who are thinking this far ahead. And so I was wondering if you might be able to explain what you have in mind for your career for the next 10 years and how did you come about deciding on that?
Yeah. So I have a 10-year plan at the moment, although I've started extending it because there's cool things after the Brisbane Olympics I want to do.
Wow.
But yeah, so a 10-year plan that sort of ends at the Brisbane Olympics in 2032. I'd love to be a part of that. It's obviously going to be a massive tournament, a home tournament in Australia, which I think would be super exciting to be a part of. In the lead up to that, I would love to go overseas and work in Europe in sport, either UEFA or FIFA or a Premier League club. I'm a massive Manchester United fan, so to work there would be an absolute dream. And I guess I had to come up with that sort of 10-year plan because there were certain decisions that I had to make within my career, and they were going to take me in a different path to where I was now, and I had to decide, if I wanted to go down that career path. And I guess I formulated that 10-year plan to make sure that I was focused with my decisions on my career. And, sometimes you have to be flexible and you have to change your career path and make different decisions. But if you have that base of, this is my goal, I want to work at the Brisbane Olympics and how do I get there? I think that's sort of how I've formulated that sort of plan to work at Football Australia till, hopefully 2026, the Men's World Cup over in the US and Canada and Mexico, and then go to Europe for 2 or 3 years, work there, and then come back and get a job at the Brisbane Olympics. So I think that's the 10-year plan at the moment.
Nice.
I love it.
And is that having that plan, is that why you're doing your masters now? You're thinking ahead of time. You want to get that done now so you can help you in the future, I guess?
Yes, to be fair. When I started my masters, it was the height of COVID, and I was in my room bored, and I was like, you know what, might as well start a masters.
I've got 3 years here, probably.
Exactly. And then literally six months later, everyone's out of lockdown. I was like, I'm stuck with this masters degree now. But they've only got a semester left after this one, which is good. So hopefully that should be done soon. But while I'm here in Australia and I have the capacity, I wanted to get that master's degree out of the way. I want to get as much experience as I can in sport, and hopefully that'll set me up well for the Brisbane Olympics.
And was there anyone in particular who guided you towards this vision setting process? How did you come about the framework for deciding what you wanted to do?
I kind of just made it up myself to start off with, and then sort of got some guidance from some important sort of career people in my life. A big one for me is my current boss at Football Australia. She's very supportive of me, growing in my career and improving and becoming the best of events person that I can be. And I've been seeking a heap of advice from her and in sort of where I want to go. And when these sort of career decisions come up, it's been really good because I've been able to speak to her and sort of get her advice to whether she thinks it's worthwhile for me to explore those career positions or whether the career change isn't for me. And she's been really open and honest with me, which has been really good. Showing me exactly what I want to do and sort of guiding me in that process, which has been really good.
Nice. And are there any goals that sit underneath it or milestones, or is it just a list of things you want to do within the next 10 years?
Currently it's a list. I'm working on the milestones. I think I'd love to obviously do the Olympics next year, which would then, if I work at the Olympics, I would have pretty much worked at every major national teams tournament in football for men's and women's, which would be a pretty cool achievement. And then obviously to work at the Men's World Cup in the US, Canada and Mexico as well. And then, a dot point would be to work at Manchester United, but we'll see if that comes about.
Nice.
Love it.
No, that's awesome. What would you say, Sorry, I reframed that. I got myself in a tangle. Like you're pretty early in your career, right? And not a lot of people would have a plan like you. You know, like having a 10-year plan, or at least just considering what the next 10 years looks like. You know, I reckon the whole time I was at cricket, I didn't have a 10-year plan. I didn't really think about it. So what would you say for people now who are just starting out, you know, might be in their first job and thinking about what the next 10 years looks like? Like, has it really served you well? Is it something that you definitely recommend doing?
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't necessarily have to be 10 years either. It can be, 3, 5, 10, whichever you can realistically plan ahead. For me, I just knew that I had those sort of milestones that I really wanted to achieve and jobs that I really wanted to work in. But I think it was definitely worthwhile because it's made my decision making so much easier. A job will pop up. I'm like, oh, that's a sick job. I'm like, well, it doesn't fit into my career goal, so like I'm not even going to bother looking at it. So it's just made that process super easy instead of sort of going like, oh, that's a cool job. Do I apply for it? Do I not? Oh, like, where will it lead to? I might head down this pathway. I've got just made sure that I've got that sort of concrete pathway from here to the Brisbane Olympics.
Yeah, nice. Awesome.
It's very cool. And is it a different feeling going to work each day knowing that you're on a path towards something you've thought deeply about compared to, before you had this plan?
Yeah, and I think it also gives sort of clarity in sort of the experience I want to get and the things I want to learn and sort of the skills and knowledge that I get at FA. It's more directed towards what I want to do instead of sort of going and just being like, yep, I'll learn everything, which is a great way to start. But then to be able to sort of narrow it down to some specific things I really want to learn and get experience in, I think has been really helpful.
Yeah, that'd be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah,
like, all right, it's pretty black or white which way I want to go, rather than like, what's the right thing? Well, actually, there's some stuff deeper on that you probably need to dig into first.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, awesome. Let's come back to your job at the moment, event manager. What are some of those essential skills that you need? Like if you were to put it down to 3 key skills, what do you need to be an event manager at Football Australia?
Great question. I think probably the first one is what I spoke about earlier with the problem solving. I think that's a big one, especially under pressure. There's going to be a lot of things that happen on a match day or match day -1 where there's going to be a lot of time pressures and a lot of people pressures, and you're going to have to make some pretty big decisions under pressure. So that sort of problem solving and decision making under pressure is super important. Being organised is another big one. When I first started working full time, I struggled to be organised. I was everywhere. I would just pick up random tasks and do it as it sort of came up. Now, there's a little bit more organisation. I make sure I have my tasks written down. I know what I'm doing throughout the day, and I think that organisation really helps to make sure you don't miss anything important and that you complete all the jobs that you want to do. And then probably the third. There's so many. Problem solving, organisation, and then probably communication skills would be the third. There's a lot of people you need to speak to and communicate to as an event manager. There's a lot of external stakeholders and internal stakeholders as well that you need to keep happy and make sure that their needs and wants are being heard, but also trying to communicate your needs and wants as well. So I think if you have that skill of communication and making sure that what you need is conveyed well, but at the same time you're showing that you're listening and you're trying to implement what they as well, I think it'll get you far.
Is there anything that comes to mind where you learned a lesson very quickly on the job? Like, I know Jerry Seinfeld has this joke where he talks about how pain is knowledge rushing in. Like if you walk into a dark room and you hit your toe on the edge of a bed, you now know where the edge of the bed is very, very quickly. Yeah. So is there any lessons you've learnt on the job? There's been quite a few. One that I've learnt very quickly was you don't kick a ball while Graham Arnold's speaking. No matter how far away you are, you don't kick a ball.
Please explain.
he was having his team talk at halfway in the circle, and the crossbar looked very inviting. So I went for it. I did hit the crossbar. Wow. I got the crossbar. And then afterwards, one of the players just pulled me aside and just respectfully told me never to do that again. So that lesson has stuck with me for a very long time, and I think it will continue to.
Imagine copping a spray from Graham Arnold when you're not even in the team.
Thankfully, it didn't come from Graham Arnold.
Not even a
player. But yeah.
What, was this at the World Cup or at a
No, it was at the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even playing, kicking balls on the field. I love that.
That's great.
Yep.
Nice.
Awesome. Some of the best parts of your role. You said that you've only got like the Olympics to go to before you've covered off every national team tour. It sounds like there'll be a lot of highlights. What have been some of the best parts?
I think obviously the experiences I've got to do, going to the playoffs and the World Cup, and then getting to travel around to different parts of Australia running matches, I think is pretty cool, and definitely a part of the job that I love to do. Another thing that I love, and it's the reason why I do events, is I love the end of the game when everyone, especially when we win, and everyone's cheering and happy, and you look around, you're like, I put this on. Everything that I did in the last weeks, months, has sort of led to this, and it's a pretty cool feeling of accomplishment to see an event come together and to go well. So that definitely keeps me going when it's tough, but just knowing that feeling at the end once you've completed that event and everyone's happy and all the feedback's great, then it makes you feel really good as well. I think another thing that I really love about my current job as well is just the support from those above me and those around me as well in gaining that experience as an event manager, giving me new opportunities and experiences and skills to learn, so I can further myself in events. I think since joining FA, I've improved massively in terms of my role as an event manager, and I think I still have a long way to go, but because of those people around me and that support and that showing me what skills I need and helping me to learn that, I think is brought me a long way and hopefully will continue to keep me on the upward way.
Love it.
Nice.
I reckon that you've just made me think that why so many people love working in events, because what you work towards, the outcome of it is so tangible and so visual. Like you can see it, you can hold it, you can feel it. Whereas some other jobs, like you never see the outcome of what you're working towards. Where at events, it's very obvious. And so you see a lot of people who get the bug or become like addicted to events, and they just go from one to the next, and it's just like you work, achieve something, feel it. I don't know, is that a real thing or not?
Absolutely. And I think I was speaking to someone that works at the Ironman group about the Hoka Runaway half marathon that was on last weekend. And at one point, she went up to this like vantage point and looked over, and there was all this crowd, and everyone was like finishing the race, and everyone was cheering them in, and that everyone that had finished was just like milling around. And it is that sense of accomplishment of like, I've put this on and this is really cool. And I think it's something that if you work in events, you'll definitely know and understand that's that feeling you get of elation after a match. And even at the kickoff whistle, you get that relief, but then that sort of sense of achievement of I've put this on.
Yeah. So is that 90-minute period when a match is on, that's like your quietest period, is that right?
Yeah, well, about 30 minutes, and then you obviously go into half-time and just making sure half-time runs smoothly. But then after that second 45 is pretty quiet. You start packing down. You start collecting your thoughts. We're only 45 minutes away from this being the end, so yeah.
But then before and after is just manic.
Yeah, definitely, especially before.
I remember working in community at CA. I used to struggle with that heaps because you couldn't ultimately see what you were trying to do. Like we're trying to, grow participation or, make sure, clubs using child safe practices and all that kind of thing. And like, there's all these different projects, but I can't see the crowd cheering, or I can't see an event completed. So it's an interesting one. Like it's, I remember thinking like, oh, I don't even know what work have I done? I can't see the end product. That's a weird one. So it sounds like events is an awesome place to work because you can just see it. You can see the success.
It's also a very stressful place to work, but it's also fun.
That's the thing. Like, you're probably stressing,
it's a trade-off.
stressing hard on a Saturday night, but ultimately rewarding. So
exactly.
What's your longest shift?
My longest shift, it would have been, I'm doing the math in my head now, 5 plus 12. It would be like probably like a 19 hours.
Wow.
19
from like a
hours.
7 a.m. to like 3 a.m.
Is this with Football Australia?
Yeah, I think so. I'm struggling to remember what match it was, whether it was a Wanderers match or I think it was a FA match. And it was one of the earlier ones, I think. And we'll just, I got to the stadium like 7 a.m. and then just everything, we had to pack up that night and everything got packed up. And it was like, 3 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've had
My bed looked very good that night.
Yeah, that would have been a nice sleep.
Absolutely.
We've talked to a few event people and they share some of the hours that they work. And it is extraordinary, like on the day that, what you get called up to do, but it's all part of it.
Exactly. And I think that's what you you understand when you join events that the hours are going to be pretty crazy. But again, it's so rewarding that you don't really think about the hours until it's like 2:30 in the morning and you're about to head home. You're like, wow, I've just worked for like 19 hours straight.
Yeah. And you'd just be running off adrenaline the entire time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Feet would have been sore.
Yes, definitely. Especially in dress shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like there's kind of two sides to your job. There's the on the day, on the match, and then there's the time between. What are you doing when there's, like when was the last match you had, say?
Socceroos at Marvel back in March.
Yeah. So it's been like 2 months. So like what does that gap look like? Is it super, super intense every day, or are there like sort of, ebbs and flows in terms of how busy you are?
Definitely ebbs and flows. Obviously, like the week after the match, everyone's sort of just like coming down from, the higher the matches, unpacking, make sure the freight's back in and sort of sorting yourself out for the next one. And then it's just obviously just planning for the next matches. Thankfully, we've had a good bit of time of leeway between obviously the Socceroos match in March and now the Matildas match in July. There's been a good amount of time which we don't usually get the luxury of, which has been really nice. But at the same time, it's a send-off match. It's going to be huge, and so there's a lot of different working parts that we're working through, and it's taken us a long time and a lot of hard work to get to where we are, and we're getting close to having it ready to go. But I think, it sort of ebbs and flows depending on, if people have replied to your emails, which sometimes it takes them a while to do. But then also like different things, lots of meetings on certain days, no meetings on other days, whether we're coming down to the stadium to do site visits or not. So it kind of, it depends on the day and what's sort of happening. But thankfully it's not manic every single day. That'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah. Good. Thank God.
And what about some challenges you've had to face to get to where you are? Has it all been smooth sailing, or have there been some tough parts, any career decisions or hurdles that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, COVID was a tough point. I went from working at Wanderers casually, but quite a few days a week, sort of working towards that full-time role, to then COVID hitting and then sort of everything being at a standstill. I had school holiday clinics planned for that first week in July, and then we got locked down on the Sunday, and I had everything still laid out in the shed. I had stuff at home I was going to take to the community thing. So it was quite a sudden shutdown, and sort of getting told that you're on job seeker or job keeper, and then you just kind of have to go back to where I was working casually at the time at the uni in the call centre, which was not in sport and not really what I wanted to do at all. And then
what were you calling people about?
People were calling me. So I was in the contact service centre, answering phone calls from prospective students, just asking about courses
right.
which like I love talking to people. So it was an enjoyable job. At the same time, it's definitely not what I wanted to do full time forever. But yeah, and I guess that was a really challenging point in time because I didn't really know where I was going to go in sport. I knew I wanted to work in sport, but there weren't any jobs going either because it was the middle of COVID. There was a lot of insecurity around people's jobs, and so for me, it was challenging because I didn't really know where I was going to go. But thankfully, it worked itself out post COVID, and I guess another challenge.
How long were you on the calls for until the next role came up?
I started at the call center when I started uni, which was 2017, and I left there 2019 or 2020.
Yeah. And what about between your role at Wanderers being cut off to Football Australia starting?
So after that, I got my full-time job at Wanderers after COVID
so Wanderers got you back.
Yeah, so gotcha. I came post-COVID. I went back to Wanderers casually and then full-time.
What was that gap between cut off to back at Wanderers?
It's like 3 months, maybe. Yeah, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And then came back and then was full-time with Wanderers for about 6 months, and then that second round of COVID hit, and then again it was sort of like that. I don't know where I'm going because I'd applied for the job at FA and I hadn't heard back, and I was sort of like enjoying my time at Wanderers, but also I didn't really enjoy the community side of things. I knew I wanted to sort of move into that event side. And I'd applied for a really cool job at FA that I was really excited to get, but I hadn't heard back. So again, it was like just having that patience that it will work out, and if you don't get the job, then it wasn't meant to be, and you just apply for the next one. And I saw somewhere related to sports grad. I think it was actually Coop's that like page that he did. And he said like the worst thing they can say is no. And I think that was super important for me. And obviously it's super important for Coops as well, because for me, I was just applying for so many jobs and I was getting so many no's back, but it's just a no and you can just apply for the next one. And I think that's what sort of kept me going through that challenging time was I knew I wanted to get into events, so I kept applying for event jobs, and eventually one said yes instead of no. So which was a great thing, thankfully.
It was that Cooper's interview in the newsletter that went out
correct.
this morning?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good to know someone reads it.
I read it in bed this morning.
Oh, that's great. So you're good on Coach. He's had a bit of influence over the episode today, which is good, which he'd love.
Absolutely.
You've spoken about a few sort of managers and whatnot at FA that have helped you, but has there been anyone else out there who's given you some advice or helped you along the way that you can really, I guess, look back on now and think that was really important in your career?
Yeah, I think going back to Bicycle New South Wales, my event manager and event director at the time when I was there, Jane Robertson was the event director, and Caroline Kurdyk was the event manager, and they were super influential in sort of giving me that first opportunity in events, but also sort of setting me up to move on post Bicycle New South Wales. They knew obviously I wouldn't stay on there forever, and so they sort of gave me some really good advice, and I've been able to go back to both Jane and Caroline since and get some advice on where I should go and what should I do. And then I guess another person would be Eric Wu, who now works at the Women's World Cup in part of the venues team, I think. He was the one that interviewed me and gave me the job at FA to begin with, and then he moved across to Women's World Cup, and he's been able to give me some really good advice and some really honest, down-to-earth advice as well, which sometimes I really needed, because I'm like, oh, this looks so cool, and I get this cool picture of what something might be, and then he's like, it's not like that, Sam. And I'm like, okay, cool. Good to know.
Those people are important, the ones who can deliver the honest but important feedback.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Sam, if you could go back to your time at university, or if you could walk back into a room where you yourself as a university student are still there and pass on one bit of advice for yourself trying to get into the sports industry, what would that bit of advice be?
probably do more in terms of volunteering or internships. I got, my internship at Basketball New South Wales and my internship at Wanderers, and that was kind of it. And I just focused on that, and I didn't really do anything else outside of that in terms of volunteering. And I think I could have definitely improved my my network and my contacts if during that time I'd sort of volunteered at different events. I was just, in love with football at the time, and I was like, I'm, doing this really cool internship at Wanderers, and that's all I want to do. And I was sort of focusing all on that. And I think in hindsight, if I had my time again, I'd obviously still do that internship at Wanderers because it was amazing. But I'd definitely do some other experience, some other internships or some volunteer work at different events to grow that sort of, different event knowledge. It's not just football events. There's obviously a lot of other events out there that are still in sport, and I think to be able to get experience in those different types of ones would have been good.
Nice one. Before we wrap up, any other episodes relating to Sam's that we can pass on?
Yeah, well, we've discovered all about Sam's career journey and what he does in the job today. But if you want to go hear back one of Sam's career highlights from the Socceroos qualifying for the FIFA World Cup in around this time last year.
Absolutely, yep.
That was episode 185. If people want to go back and listen to that, where Sam was coming off about 2 hours of sleep post-celebration. So
it was a very different Sam back then than he is now.
Wasn't quite at his best. Sorry. In ways of health. Wow. That's all I meant.
It's very tired.
Yeah.
So there's a very good one. Another interesting one might be the interview that I did with Chris Niku at the FIFA World Cup. Also, we had a chat about what it was like at the FIFA World Cup. So those interested in football, you can go back and listen to that. I think that was 227, I think. That was a little bonus one at the end of last year. So a couple of football ones for those interested.
What was Carlo?
Carlo was number 20.
Awesome, 20. Simon Hill was in there somewhere?
Simon Hill was 167.
Nice. Thought I'd just throw all football in there.
Yeah.
And Nathan Peroni's in there as well.
Peroni is 83 and 183.
It's scary how good your memory is.
And then the other one is from Sunderland, Tom, what's his last name?
From Southampton.
Tom Rose, episode 69.
52 challenges in 52 weeks.
Yep.
That was a bloody brilliant episode.
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, there's about 15 hours of content for those listening.
Yep.
Sam, mate, it's been a pleasure having you in here. As I said before when we got in here, I was like, I feel like we've done this before in person, and it's weird that we've only ever met you probably like five times. For me personally, but it's great seeing you, and it's great having you in here and just hearing about that journey. You're a great example for a lot of people who started in a casual role and, trying to get that dream job, and seeing where you've got to now being event manager, and also seeing where you're going over the next 10 years. I've got absolutely no doubt that you'll hit that Brisbane 2032, mate. So pleasure having you in here, mate, and we'll catch you at the next meetup sometime.
Absolutely. Get those the Sydney meetup details out.
Yeah, we'll get out soon. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey, guys, one last thing before you go. If you'd enjoy a quick email from us each Friday on all the latest job openings, networking events, Q&As with industry professionals, and latest podcast episodes, then subscribe to the SportsGrad newsletter. Head to our website, www.sportsgrad.com.au/newsletter to subscribe. There's also a link in our show notes to join.